is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. Well, I was trying to think today, and I'm an older Giant fan, and I'm going back to the 70s, and we had a lot of late-round draft choices this year. And I was thinking to myself, who were some of the all-time great New York Giants late-round draft choices? Now, I'm not talking players from the second round. I'm not talking players from the third round. I'm not even talking players from the fourth round. Hell, let's not even include the fifth round. Let's go fifth round. Let's go sixth round and down. Some of the greatest players that played or put on the Giant uniform that were late-round draft choices. Now, the first person I think of immediately is the 1993 eighth-round draft choice, Jessie Armstead. Now, we think about this for a minute. If he did not tear his ACL his sophomore season at the University of Maryland, there was no way in hell Jessie was going to slide down to the eighth round in 93. You know what? And there was a pretty good chance he would never become a Giant. But what happened? He slides down. 5 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances later. First team All-Pro in 97. He did spend his final 2 seasons of his 11-year career in Washington. And we're not gonna hold him a grudge against that. But he did come back and sign a 1-day contract so he could retire a Giant. Now that's a pretty good for an 8th round pick. Now if we even go deeper back in the history into the early 70s. Early 70s had, I forget, like 20 rounds. We got to take a look at the 14th round draft choice linebacker Brian Kelly. Along with, he was part of the original Crunch Bunch with Taylor, Carsons, Van Pelt, and Kelly. He is probably one of the best linebackers to put on a Giant uniform that no one really remembers. He didn't have what they would call, standout numbers, but it's kind of hard to stand out when you're playing with 2 Hall of Famers, with Carson and Taylor, and you have a guy who would always go to the Pro Bowl and Van Pelt. But he, for more than a decade, was a key part of the New York Giants defense. It's a shame that he never got to make it to a Super Bowl, that he never got to, really enjoy the fruits of the Giants' labor after the 85 season. But you know what? He was a player for the New York Giants. Now, another player that I was thinking about was going to be one of my father's favorite players, which was free safety Carl the Spider Lockhart, 13th round draft choice in 1965. Oh, poor Spider had he had the misfortune of playing in the late 60s into the 70s, so during his 11-year career. While he was a 2-time Pro Bowl selection, he ranks 3rd on the team's all-time interception list right now at 41. He used to be number 1. In his 11-year career and spent entirely with the Giants, out of a potential 145 games, he played in all but 5. Spider was always on the field, and Spider had a nose and a knack for the ball. And again, he's a guy that people look at and go, I don't really remember him, but, I hear stories about him. Spider was good. And like I said, I saw him play briefly towards the end of his career. That would have been towards like the 74 season. But you know what? Stories that I heard from my father, any other team, Spider would have been an asset, and Spider would have probably won a Super Bowl ring. Now, another player that had the misfortune of coming to the Giants in 1978 was going to be cornerback Terry Jackson. Terry Jackson was a good, solid player for 8 seasons with the Giants. He had 24 interceptions, 2 of which he returned for touchdowns. He had a total of 7 fumble recoveries. He took one of them in the house in the 83 season. I remember that, and that was his final season with Big Blue. That was the 3-12 in 1 year. Now, he never made the Pro Bowl, but he made teams regret going towards his side. I mean, he was a standout player he came over from San Diego State. I think he probably should have gone to the Pro Bowl in 81, but I think that season they were saying more that the New York Giants were carried by the linebackers during their during their first playoff run under Ray Perkins in years. But he was a guy that really should have shown some more love and some more value. Now, a couple of other players that we want to take a look at who were later round draft choice. Of course, we have to take a look at our old buddy Ahmad Bradshaw. 7th round, 250th pick in 2007, part of the whole Earth, Wind, and Fire rushing attack. Now, he ran for over, like I said, 4,000 yards in his career. He was a key factor in his rookie season, helping us, get to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl. If it wasn't for injuries taking their toll over him, I think he probably could have stayed on with the Giants longer. He was a cap casualty, and he went over to Indianapolis for a year. But Ahmad was a guy that we took in the 7th round in Marshall, who, he was a guy that, again, should have gone higher in the draft. But he had some issues in his collegiate career, which led him to Marshall. It was almost like the Randy Moss situation, how Randy Moss ended up in Marshall. But we're not going to get into that. This is a good day. This is players that we're looking at that really made a difference, at their level at a late round draft choice. So we're not even gonna get into that. But you know what? He was a guy that, like I said, he was quick. He was smooth. You would never know with him, which he could stop. Like I always say, he could stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change. But he was another fantastic late round draft choice. Another one that some people sometimes overlook because he played so long was George Martin, defensive end, 1975, 11th round, 262nd overall. He played from 1975 to 1988, and he was enshrined in the Giants' Ring of Honor. He spent 14 seasons with us and only missed 6 games, while totaling 46 career sacks, which I think now he's either 7th or 8th in team history. And, at the time when he retired in 88, no other defensive lineman had ever scored more touchdowns than George. George had 6. I remember the play in Week 12 in 1986 when he intercepted John Elway and ran it back 78 yards. I thought, he even said the hardest hit I took ever in his career was Lawrence Taylor tackling him in the end zone. And I remember Lawrence, as he was going down the sideline, running alongside him. George, you could see, wanted to pitch the ball. He was trying to pitch the ball to LT so he could take it in, but he still stumbled, rumbled, and fumbled all the way into the end zone. Oh, that was great. 78 yards later. And you know what? I felt happy for George because he was another player that kind of, with the Giants was in the mid-70s where we were pretty terrible, going through parts of the early 80s. So he really got to see the good side of football when he was able to, put on that Super Bowl ring. So, I think, like I said, he definitely makes this list. And, like I said, he makes this list. If we were doing an actual list, he would make this list extremely high up. Another 2 players that I want to talk about briefly. We're going to be 8th round pick Billy Ard, 1981, and Doug Riesenberg, the 6th rounder in 87. Solidified the line so we could have that 1986 championship. Riesenberg played 10 years with the Giants, finishing his career up with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like I said, I liked Ard because the favorite thing was like, let Ard be your guard. But Ard played, he played in the early 80s. He got to experience, luckily for him, some of the highlights in the 81 season. But he was not a spectacular lineman, but he like the 86 team, he was a lunch pail guy. And you knew that he was going to go out there every day and do his job. The last player I want to bring up, and a lot of people aren't going to be, they're going to be saying, they're probably not going to know a lot about him, is going to be 1953 draft choice in the 27th round, left tackle Rosie Brown. Oh my God! Like I said, you got to remember back in the 50s, you had tons of draft choices. You had tons around because there was only 13 teams. But still, for him to fall down to the 27th round, if you think of the great, if you are a historian of football and you think of the great tackles in professional football, you think of Rosie Brown. You know, he missed 4 games in a 13-year career, 9 Pro Bowls, was named to first team All NFL 8 consecutive years. He's a member of the NFL 75th anniversary team. He's part of the NFL's 1950 All-Decade team. You know, and he was part of the inaugural class of the 2010 Ring of Honor for the New York Giants. So, like I said, Rosie was the guy. Rosie was the man. But again, like I said, a lot of people don't, especially younger fans, not that they don't know their history, they just don't follow the history like some of us do. But you know what? He was a legendary Giant. And again, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. If you could leave a like, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that fun stuff, that would be awesome. That would help us out. And like I said, we appreciate all the comments and that we get to read, and we try to respond to as many as we possibly can. But like I said, it's been an interesting 9 months doing this, and hopefully we'll continue it for another 9-10 years. So again, this is Tim with Online Big Blue, bringing you the best in New York Giants sports talk and entertainment. And as always, thanks for listening.